There we are. Welcome to the Certificate of Completion Q&A. So Tom, we'll take it from the top and give us an overview of the course. I know you had just started, so if you want to jump into that.
Okay. So I think it was 2011. I think you're 2010 or 2011. 2011. I'm watching Antonio. Where it came, that's where it started. Where it came from was I had been studying for a little over 10 years at that time. And so I'd accumulated some experience as to how this actually showed up for me and how it showed up in my life. And previously as being a trainer, it was just absolutely a pleasure for me to turn this into a course that was kind of broken down into very clear steps. And so my whole journey started by working with Marshall in New York, and he was a little frustrated in that, his claim to fame was, they talk about the 4 steps in the process and like that, which was a little frustrating for him, because when you learn to do 4 steps and you don't understand why you're doing the steps or what the context of those steps are, they tend not to stay in your head or ever get into your life. And so this was a big point of contention for Marshall. But he was kind of, I don't know if you'd say stuck with it, but he ran with the model and just really had hoped that people would, stick with it long enough to kind of move into the consciousness behind the model. So he kind of asked me, he said, look, if you could teach this from the consciousness perspective instead of the model perspective, go for it, man. And so that's what this course is. It's teaching needs awareness. It's not just nonviolent communication. You could say you could see it's not even based on communication in a way, it's based on consciousness. And any communication that we're talking about in the course has to do with the consciousness that engenders that communication. And so the idea behind the course was to say, okay, let's start at the beginning. And like I said, I was a professional trainer for years, so I love breaking it down and teaching this in a way that would just be way more permanent in our psyches. And I think that's really important, because the work that Marshall invented or discovered or created was so different from what our culture does on a regular basis, right? He talks about the habitual mind versus this this new aware mind. Well, we're social animals, and so it's huge, right? There's this like magnetic force that wants to hold us into the way we've been thinking the whole rest of our lives and how everybody around us is thinking. And this really asks us to think differently. So the idea behind the course was, let's really make solid steps, a solid foundation. And, it's true, like some people, when they teach nonviolent communication, will talk about requests in about the first 10 minutes. And we don't talk about it, I think, for months and months, because requests are based on, everything in the work is based on an awareness. So that was what the course is for, to just capture the essence of the work from the consciousness perspective, and then move into using it in life, using that way of thinking in your life. So that was 12 years ago. We've got to be over 30,000 people have taken the course now. It is doing well. It's doing well. This year we're working on a Swahili translation. We're doing a Greek translation that's new this year, but we're up to, I think, 19 or 20 languages, 120 countries. Nobody's saying that it's not compatible with their ethos. So it's really encouraging, right? Because I was thinking, wow, this is universally human. And if that's the case, it would transcend politics, it would even transcend culture, right? And so far it has. And so so that's the course part. But then what happened is over the years, like I said, there's probably 30,000 people have taken it. That's a pretty good sized city, actually. So I didn't want it to just be, after a time, I didn't want it to just be me and which it can be. I mean, it can be just me and you having a conversation, email. But I also was hoping that the course would be able to grow. And so we've introduced practice groups. And then that did really well. And so then we had our own community taking care of our own community. And we were starting to form this little ecosystem, you could say. And so then we added, we decided we wanted to add, and we've added empathy buddies. We have a lot of directories that we've added so people can get in touch with each other. We've added empathy cafes, empathy trainings, anger training, all this new stuff that we've put in based on what the community kind of seems to need. So a lot of what we're trying to do now is just kind of set the table and let everybody else come and eat. And so the idea is that we want to facilitate your ability to be a mentor or your ability to be a practice group leader. And this might sound a little weird, but unlike a lot of organizations, we are striving to have the lowest threshold of entry for a leadership position as possible. And you would say, well, why would you do that? And it's because if you have good communication, if you have a lot of information and accurate information, people can actually make decisions for themselves as to where they want to go for their education. And so what we're trying to do here is set it up so, and I know some of us have been through this, if you wanted to play a leadership role, you would have to have tens of thousands of dollars. You would have to wait years and years, when many people are absolutely capable of facilitating a small practice group after no time, actually. So what we tried to do here is lower the threshold for entry into leadership. And so for the practice group to be a practice group facilitator, organizer, you just have to have taken the course for a year. So you know what you're in for, right? So you know you have the stamina to get through a year of the course, so that you personally do, right? So that you can offer that. Then we realized that, well, some folks like to work on a one-to-one basis, and like in a mentoring environment. And so that raised the bar a little bit in terms of the level of rigor, the level of knowledge or of integration of the course in order to help somebody on a one-on-one basis, as opposed to just facilitate a group of people learning. And so this is one of the reasons we created the certificate of completion. So not only do we know that you've done the course, but we know that you registered and got through it, but you actually did the majority of the work in the course. And that then we could say, okay, now we know that at least you've been through the course once, and to be a mentor, the requirement is that you know about 5 minutes more than the person you're mentoring, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's like you just have to know a little bit more than they do to help them along. And so that's where the COC came from. But it turned out also that a lot of folks, and I know if I had done the COC back in the day when I was starting, I would have done it even without the mentoring piece, just because of the body of work, of my own work, right, that would be generated by doing the certificate of completion. And so what happens is, it's not just for people who want to be mentors, it's for folks who just like the structure, for example. But it is also one of the benefits, I think, is you're actually getting through the work and you're documenting that. So you can go back to your experience, you can look at your chapters, you can have your version of all these different practices, and you're going to know which ones you'll be developing more in the future and which ones you're happy with, right? So that's where the COC came from. And yeah, and another thing about it is it's not a certification of you. Like, we're not saying you are now officially a trainer or officially anything. What we are saying, and we really, one of the things that we want to do is make sure this is a power with organization, a community, and that nobody's a gatekeeper for anybody, that we're our own gatekeepers. And the way we do this, as I was talking about it earlier, is with information. So let's suppose I did a certificate of completion and I've never mentored anybody before in my life. I could still become a mentor. And I would say, and in my profile, it would say I have 0 hours of experience as a mentor. And I have taken the course, I've done that, and I'm in the mentoring program, I have support. And so here it is, I'm talking about this low threshold. Now, are you going to be very good at it? Maybe not so great at it your first time around, which is why I would never charge people my first time around. But at least I have the entry, the ability to enter the game. And in fact, that's how the first year of the Compassion course came out. It cost $0. I didn't ask for donations. I didn't ask for anything. I was just like, please take the course. If you know, let me know if you like it. And obviously they did. So it's kind of the same thing here. You can, if you want to play that role, which for a lot of us is super rewarding, you can. And the other thing that happens is there are a bunch of folks without a lot of experience who are willing to work pro bono. And then therefore that helps the community, because we have folks in India who really don't have money, for example, for a mentor. So what happens is the folks who don't have as many resources can team up with the newbies and help the newbies get experience and help themselves get mentoring. And so and this is just naturally occurring based on how we've organized the course, right? There's no gatekeeper. It's just allowing everybody to talk to everybody and make decisions that suit them. And so that's true for the mentoring program. It's true for and for practice groups too. If you never did a practice group before, as like when I started, my first practice group did not charge. I was just like, well, I'm learning here to do a practice group, so I'm not going to charge you. That said, we provide training for mentors. We provide, real time throughout the year. We have real time training for the practice group organizer facilitators. And so the idea is, right, we're just trying to cultivate now this kind of little ecosystem of mentors, practice groups, individuals, and now to just sprinkle some help on everybody. We've got the empathy cafes, we've got the empathy 101 training, which happens at a very important part in the course. And then we have the anger training, which is another one of these whole other stages that we get into with the work, a whole other level of challenge. That's when we find out, is our empathy practice actually really solid enough to be able to do this work? But we look at all that. It's really cool, right? We're paying attention to this. So many folks have taken this course. I've watched and been part of a lot of folks learning this work. So we know where the problem spots are, and we're helping folks to get through them. Just doing empathy, right? Just having an empathy exchange, sitting down. I know the first time I ever did that, I was terrified, absolutely terrified, that I was going to sit there in front of another human being and guess their feelings and needs, and they were going to guess mine. So just like stuff like that, we know that's happening and we're paying attention to it. So I think I don't think I could say anything more about this. I think we're pretty covered on it. So yeah, so this is our third year, right, doing this, the COC. And Antonio will be able to talk you through the what and the how of it all. He's going to pick up in a second. But before we do that, let me just check with you. Did you have any questions about anything I said? Was anything confusing? Did anything not line up in your mind? Anything like that?
And I saw Patricia say that she was asking about the empathy buddies and empathy groups, actually. So empathy buddies
Yeah.
are something that we are going to strongly suggest and encourage. And beyond that, we're going to support people who want to have an empathy buddy. I've had several empathy buddies over the past 10 years. One being a very consistent empathy buddy. The only thing that we speak about, one person talks about whatever they want to talk about. The other person is just going to reflect that person's feelings and needs. And then we switch. But those are my only words when I am giving empathy, are just feelings and needs guesses. So that's what an empathy buddy is in terms of how do we support that? There's empathy. We have an empathy training 101, and that happens at about week 10 of the course. That's usually it's fertile ground for people to start looking for and practicing, and also understanding empathy. Like, you gotta know what it is before you go out there and do it. What are the mechanics of it? How does it work? How do I apply it? What stops it? How do I apply this into my life? And I think we break that down step by step. And beyond step by step, we give you really the fundamentals of empathy during the Empathy 101 training. And then we offer, once Empathy 101 training happens, we have an empathy buddy directory. So if you are in the course, you have access to the empathy buddy directory. Anybody who's looking for an empathy buddy can sign up for one on the empathy buddy directory, and you can search for empathy, people who are looking for an empathy buddy on there. Right. So you sign up, and then you have access to the directory. It's kind of like, right, to join. Once you join the directory, you have access to the directory. And so, and throughout the year, we have empathy cafes, and that's a space where people can come and practice and exchange empathy. So there's that. And then there's also this year going to be what we're calling empathy circles. So let's say you love empathy, you want to practice it more, and you want to help other people practice it. You can join an empathy. We're having an empathy circle training, so that if you want to host an empathy circle, which is basically like people show up and you say, all right, let's break out to do some empathy. And so we're going to train you to do that. And you can host your own empathy circle. You can do that in person. You can do it online. And so as long as you list yourself on the directory, there will be a directory for people who want to host an empathy circle. That's going to be available to you as well, as a participant. If you want to host one, then, right, you would join the empathy circle training. And we're going to send that information about that as well throughout the year. But I think maybe hopefully that covers the empathy aspect of all this, which, by the way, doing the course on your own is really hard. I sometimes I just didn't do it because it's such a self-discipline course. It's really, it requires a lot of self-discipline. So we are even including this year practice partners, so that if you want support, maybe you find an empathy buddy, and that's going to really help you. Or, you could say, maybe I want a practice partner as well. And so you can find a practice partner, and there will be a directory for that, so that you can basically go through. It's almost like having more accountability and helping somebody else stay on track with the course. That's also no cost, by the way, and there's no training for that. There's just going to be a directory, so that on a weekly basis, you meet up with somebody and you do the exercises, and that might actually help you to stay on track with your journal entries, so that you can actually say, I did the exercises this week, and maybe you did them with your practice partner. So that's another thing that we're doing. I think every year what we're trying to do, and we're seeing it, by the way, statistically, to help people stay on track with the course. So we're just trying to help people to like figure out, and right with the feedback from the community, how can we help you to stay on track and to help you remain in the course, if you will, because it's a hard one. So so those are the things that I covered there. Empathy buddies, empathy circles. If you want to host an empathy circle, there's a training for that. And then we have practice partners as well. So right, everything is free except for the empathy circle training, by the way. There's no cost to those things.
So I just want to just add here that the idea was to create a course that no matter what your learning style was, or no matter what level of engagement you wanted, you could still be in it, right? So if you just want to get a weekly email and just look at it, or look at it once a month or every once in a while, yeah, you can do that. If you want to get a certificate of completion, if you want to play a leadership role or an organizing role in the future, that's here too. And look, a lot of us who learn the work, it's hard for us to not share it with other people. It's like, how could you know this and not let other people know about it, right? And so we're really trying to, help that happen. But I guess the other thing is that all the agreements that we make have to do with the course itself. In other words, one of the reasons we can make all these different categories and different ways to step into the course is because the course itself doesn't change, right? It's this solid kind of progression of information. And so as long as you're in the course with other people, there's no teaching required. Like there's no teaching actually required as a mentor. There's no teaching required as a practice group leader because the course does that. So those positions they're different. They're much more specific. And so what happens is we have a community where there's, well, for one thing, it makes sure that things are in the best possible order that they're in, that we're learning them in a sequence that's really effective. And the other part is that there's very little controversy, right? Because we're not taking on the whole of NVC world. We're just saying, look, this is just the compassion course. This is one course. And that what we do here is inside the course. Now, I'm not saying you don't do stuff outside. I mean, of course we do. However, this is very specific ground that's held for the compassion course itself. And that actually helps us as a community because we're all studying the same thing at the same time. And so again, there isn't any controversy here because of, again, the sequence and the specificity of the information that's given and it's spread out, and how it's spread out. So I think that's, that was an important thing to address, which I think we did, really. So now, if you like to be in a group, if you want to be in a group around empathy, if you want to be in a group around learning, if you want to be with, with a mentor, or if you want to be play a leadership role, all that stuff now is here in the ecosystem for you to participate in. So it's been a lot of growth, like Antonio said, that the engagement rates are way up now, which is really important for us, right? That's our mission, right? Is to help people really get this. So that's what we're doing. Okay, sorry, Anto, you were going. So we'll get into the logisticals?
Questions? I know we were on that as well.
Or are we clear?
Comments?
Yeah.
Give it
Anything else?
Antonio, I'm sorry, excuse me. You may just want to talk a little bit about what's required of it. I know like that they're required to do 95% of the exercises. Do you want to give some of those details?
We'll get into that, right?
Yeah, I think
because you were just asking for questions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. we'll probably start with that when we get into the logistics of everything. Any other questions before we steamroll along?
May I just throw in there, in case you may have already figured this out, the word empathy is used all over the place these days, but when we speak about empathy, we're talking about a particular strategy for connecting with what's going on for you so that you can understand the concepts of the course and also shift how you might be handling things in your life. And we also offer some empathy cafes too that will help you to be able to learn that skill. It is a skill. So that those will be, you'll hear about all those things once you're into the course.
Okie dokie. All right.
Anything else? Okay, so
You want to share screen?
let's see, do I have access to that? I think I do. I'll share my screen in a moment. So we're gonna break down how does this work? Like, you know, again, if you want a certificate for whatever reason, this is how we are asking, this is the work that we're asking you to complete. So let me bring up my screen and
while Antonio's doing that, I'm going to just mention one of the funny little things about this, which is that first of all, we want to live in a world of observations as much as possible and not evaluations. And so we actually are not going to evaluate your work. I know that sounds weird, but what we are going to do is say that you either did it or you didn't, right? In other words, we're going for pure observation here. We're not saying you did it well. We're not saying you did it poorly. We're saying you did it. And of course, that's going to mean different things for different people. And we're okay with that, because ultimately we want to run on communication. We don't want to run on publication, right? On just things that everybody goes and looks at. I'm hoping that if you're looking for a practice group leader or you're looking for a mentor or whatever, that there's going to be enough information about that person available that you can make an informed decision or get that information by contacting them. So like I said earlier, you know, it's nice to think you have a community, but you don't really have a community unless people are interacting with each other. It's just an idea. And so we're really trying to just break through all that. Like I said, we want to stay in step with our values, which are power with, not power over, and as much opportunity as possible, and also to completely respect people's ability to make their own decisions when we can help that the information that they need to make that decision flow. So like that. Danny, you had something?
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're not going to be evaluating, which I appreciate the thoughtfulness of that. But I did want to kind of ask, will we be getting feedback? So, you know, you look at our work and you see some things where maybe we can be more in alignment with the NVC values. Is there a mechanism for you to let us know, hey, here's a point where you might want to work on something a little bit?
Yes, it's called a mentor, right? Like you could bring that work to a mentor. And that was the whole idea. But you know what I'm saying? Because that's where I start to have a problem, where it's like, if it's all flowing upstream, then what happens is you have this weird concentration of power at the top and not a lot of dissemination of information even. It's weird, right? So the idea is the mentoring program, there's 50 mentors right now that you could go to, right? So you could do your COC and say, hey, and I'd love to work with a mentor while I'm doing my COC so that I can get the most out of it. So it is there. It's just that it's not it's not institutionalized in a specific office, right? It's spread out through the mentoring community or practice group community for that matter, right? You could, or even you could even get a practice partner and use them as a sounding board as well.
Yeah, but when we check your work, we're checking that you did it, not to give you feedback.
Right.
Because we might have, we've had over 100 people in the past. And so, when it comes time to verify that work in May, it's like, we can't get feedback. And so it's something that you keep up with for yourself. We are going to be able to verify that you did the work.
Yeah.
But if you want, like Tom said, more feedback, then you could reach out to a mentor, which would be a separate thing. Hopefully that makes sense.
I do want to say this though. I mean, if you just typed in all work, no play makes Johnny a dull boy, and filled out all your entries that way, that's not considered completing the course. So we do look to see that you made, an actual effort to do things. And as my teacher, Marshall Rosenberg would say, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And, it's kind of true with this work. We do it poorly in the beginning. And then we just get better and better at it if we keep showing up.
All right, maybe I'll share my screen.
Okay.
So I'll give you the rundown. Here's this is actually the first email that you get from us, just to kind of like break down everything. So you will get this once, the course begins. We give you the rundown. Every week, you will receive the link so that you have access to the platform where I will show you the platform, but you're going to get a link every week so that you have access to that platform to, again, fill in the entries. So again, what we're asking for, what's the journal going to include? What was your experience doing the exercises from that week? How did it go for you? So some of the exercises are things that you might be able to do more readily on the spot. Like some of them are going to be handouts. Majority of them are going to be exercises that you kind of like take with you during the week. So if we say like, notice the judgments that are coming up for you during the week, and notice the shift that happens when you connect them to needs, and write down, what your experience is. So, just as a frame of it, of mind of exercises that we might throw out there.
Right.
So, you might want to start. And actually the cool thing about our journal, you can start writing and it's auto saved so that if you come back later, what you wrote is still there and you can add on more. So you might want to go to the journal and start off by saying, I noticed that I had some judgments. I haven't yet connected them to needs. You come back the next day and you're like, oh, I realized that I have a need for more support when I think that, my friend's being lazy. So that's an example of a possibility. I'll show you the platform.
And you can paste into this thing too. Like if you just like your notes app on, your phone for some reason, you can use that and just paste stuff in as well.
Yeah. And a great way of keeping a copy of the work, I like doing this, and some other people I've heard like doing this, is that they kind of like keeping a running journal, whether it's on, Gmail, whether it's on a Word document, whether it's on Google Drive. It's a way for you to also keep it's another way for you to keep kind of like a copy of your work. Some people like keeping a running journal, and then at the end of the year, they say, here's all my work. And so that's another way to do this. In terms of what the platform looks like, and by the way, hopefully you can see the notes here. There's a section also in the platform where you can write notable experiences that you had, insights. I noticed this week that I was about to enter into an argument with somebody, and I realized I could sense my tension. And you know, and I actually had a different experience happen, and you can kind of share more about experiences like that happen in your life. How are you applying this work to your life? How is it showing up? Did you have an instance, a story that happened that you want to maybe document? And it's great because you can always look back on this.
And also you can put all the emails in one folder. Like when you make an entry, it sends an email to you of your entry, by the way, right?
Well, that was the old platform. This
Oh,
is
sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll show you what this platform looks like. This note, after week 10, you can start documenting how many hours of empathy you're practicing. There will be a section for that in the platform. Here are other required course components. You can either listen to or attend. And we actually wanted to make this something that is doable. So we did change this actually. It's 12 of 12 conferences. You can either listen to the recordings. The recordings are always made available, or attend them. Again, I know not everybody can attend them, so we are at least asking you to maybe listen to them. You know, a great place to listen to them sometimes, like where do you start listening to them from? You could start listening to them from where Tom starts reviewing the weeks. I know that we kind of cover, you know, check-ins like we did here, and then Tom goes into the review of the weeks that we just went through, and so that's a great time to listen. That's, you know, you can start there. Participation in the forum, this is another thing that we're asking you to do. It's just why we're asking for this is maybe this is a place that you go to find more support. It could be a place where you could even provide support. So this is another thing that we're just asking you. And look, I mean, if it does, look, all of this, by the way, just to really name it, these are agreements. And I know in the past, somebody has said, look, I'm really not into the forum thing. Can I share more about that? Maybe it's not going to work for me. So please, like, right. This is, we are, you know, we are constant communicators around here. And so if something's up for you, like, please reach out to us. I think we even said that here. There you go. So certification, like when do we start certifying your work? Around May, right? In the middle of May, you will be informed by email. Hey, are you ready to have your work verified by us? And so we will remind you, this is a time for you that if you are ready and you have all your work, please send it in. Some people like to do handwritten entries. If that's the case, when May comes around, again, we will let you know of this. We'll let you know, hey, it's time, right? If you're ready for your work to be reviewed, click here. Let us know where your entries are located. Are they on the platform? That way we know where to go to find them. The other option is, no, I will email you my entries. So that, for example, if you have handwritten entries, you can send us, right, PDF or pictures of that. Or the other option, sometimes, like I said, people have a running Word document or a running Google document, and they send us an email of that. So, right, you can either say they're on the platform, all of my entries, or I will email them to you. So let me stop sharing and I will show you the platform as well.
I just wanted to back up for a second to talk about the forum. Because one of the cool things about the forum is, like, when you have a course that's been going for 12 years, there are some really, really experienced people in that forum. I mean, if I was going to say what I would put that as number one in terms of what are the resources, the learning resources that this course offers. I would say the forum is probably the number one source, because so many folks have just been doing this for a while, and they can really help you not reinvent the wheel, right? They can really make your look, it's a rigorous course already. We know this. So if it can make it easier, like, yeah, let's do that. So just a little editorial about the forum there.
Yeah. Here's the platform. Let me show you this. So the way that the platform works, every week, right now we are, for example, all the way up to week 40. So if I were to scroll up, this would now be open. I think I probably have to refresh and it would you would see week 40, but each week you would have a new section open up. So for example, if I were to just show you, here's week 1, here's where you can complete and share your experience with the exercises. So you can,
well, the actual exercises are here, right? This is where you do them.
This is where
right.
you do the exercises.
Right.
Yeah. So some people like to copy the exercises in here. But some people also just like to write their experience with the exercises in here. So this is where you do that. And so again, if I were to just so if I were to just write this, and if I were to exit out right now, this is auto saved. And if I came back in 5 minutes or in 5 days, this would actually stay here. So like I said, you can kind of like keep a running active document. This is your own journal.
It's like your own ebook.
Yeah. Yeah. Week 1 reflection, this is where we were saying, so what we're really focused on mainly is the practices. This is what we're going to, you could say, be required for you to complete the practices. Week 1 reflection is where you can talk about any personal experiences that you've had with the practice in your life. So, right, you can document personal experiences.
And and this is where I would put my, my aha moments, if you will.
Yeah.
And how something, because every once in a while, something just really clicks and it works. And I think it's just so important to write those down. Because we do have a lot, we have a lot of failures in the beginning when we do this. It's just like a thing, and so so important to really focus on those little victories that we get.
Once you get up to when we get into week, after week 10 is when we start our empathy journey. And so after week 10, starting at week 11, this is where you can just start typing in how many hours of empathy you have completed that week. If you haven't done anything, it's just another frame of reference for you to kind of like keep of like, did I do empathy this week? It's just, right, it's a great way to just kind of like check in with yourself of like how your empathy practice is going as well. So this is going to be after week 10, you will have 3 sections. You'll have hours of empathy for each week, practices for each week, and reflection for each week. So I think that kind of covers it. And so anyways, this is kind of like, this was actually specifically made and customized for us, this platform. And you will have access to it for yourself. I think that kind of covers it. So I see hands, so I'm going to stop sharing and come back to everybody here. Danny.
So maybe this is just me, but I'm feeling kind of confused. Like it's kind of nebulous to me. Can you describe exactly like some of the practices or like some of the like what counts as an hour of empathy? I'm a little confused by some of the terminology, I guess.
Yeah, maybe I'll pull up an exercise. In terms of empathy, we are more specifically talking about practicing empathy with somebody from the community. And that might become a little bit more clearer after week 10, because at week 10 we kind of break down. Actually, it's a sample week, so I can show you right now what we talk about when it comes to empathy. If you go to our website and you go to
Oh, that's funny.
this is a perfect question. So if you go to the website, you go here. The sample week about empathy actually is what we're specifically talking about. And so right here are things.
There you go,
that are not-
Danny. There's your answer. You can just paste that right into your brain.
So these are not, empathy responses, right? If somebody says, "Oh, I hate my job. My boss is such a control freak," right? So what we are going to, and this is what we're going to do in the course is not
Actually,
not be practicing analyzing.
If I could jump in, please. So there's two ways we can look at that word empathy, right? In other words, I can have an empathic view of the world. I could look at somebody who's doing something I don't like and go, wow, they must be in pain, right? Instead of saying, oh, what a jerk. So that's me being empathic, right? But there's another thing that we call empathy, which is what we talk about in empathy cafes or empathy sessions, where let's say something's bugging me and I just can't quite figure out what all get myself centered. So I might be, I might be like, Danny, all I can think about is what an ass my neighbor is. That is all I can think of. Every time when I wake up in the morning, and I hear their dog barking, it's driving me nuts. And so you get to be the needs aware guy in the room, right? I could just go ahead and complain, and then you help me get centered by saying, so is it that you're just really frustrated and you'd love some space? And then I would try that on and I'd be like,
yeah, let me try it on with you, Tom. So are you frustrated, needing some space?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so what am I doing? I'm shifting my view, and Antonio's helping me shift my view into that empathic view, right? So instead of thinking that my neighbor's a jerk, I could just think about how much pain I'm in right now, which, by the way, will help me when it gets centered and be more likely to have some compassion for my neighbor. And so, right, the empathy process it's either the view or achieving that view with the help of another person in what we call an empathy session. And though that's the thing that blew my mind when I first started. I was like, an empathy session, and it was really scary for me. But what I found out is after some practice, that it introduced me into some ideas and helped me see things I just wouldn't have seen otherwise. And so that's really its purpose, right? To help us get that empathic view, to go what I call there's like a parallel universe, right, of needs that's running the show, right? That's what Marshall kind of taught us. And so that's what empathy is. It's that journey. It's that the act of finding out, right, of what's going on in there. The exploration. That's the word I'm looking for. Of what's going on in here from a needs perspective, not the judgment stuff. We have that already. That's built into our society. So what the empathy does is it helps us kind of divine out the life-serving information that's hidden in our judgments. And so empathy is amazing. I think that's probably the most important aspect of all of NVC, frankly, is the ability to recognize and translate judgments.
And
Yes.
in terms of like what the exercises are for that week, practice 1, noticing when I'm giving on empathy to somebody. I might tell my friend, when my friend tells me of how miserable he is at work, maybe I told my friend, hey, you should at least be grateful you got a job in this economy. And so if I did that, right, what the homework here is saying is to notice, when that's happening, and then see if I can create some time to figure out what would be an empathic response.
Right.
And so just to give you an idea, Dan, and so, right, for all of us, this is kind of like an idea of what you would be writing in your journal of like, oh, maybe I'm guessing now the person was feeling stressed and maybe they were needing some support. Right.
And it also helps us recognize our habitual thinking, right? Like the data gathering, or like, oh, when did this start happening, right? Or the analysis, or, did this happen, it just sounds like something from your childhood, or, all these things that we say to people that aren't empathy. And but this is part of the course, right? That where you learn just by really pointing a finger going, just so you know, that's not empathy, so it kind of keeps us on track. And so the whole course, I'm hoping, does that. But this, particularly around empathy, that is one of the most important weeks there that was just up on the screen.
Did you have something else, Danny? I know you were just talking.
Yeah, if we could just circle back, thank you for the example of practice and for the explanation on the empathy thing. I think I was a little bit unclear in my question. What I was focusing on is I don't know how to measure hours of empathy, because obviously if I'm being empathic with someone, I'm not looking at the clock going, okay, it's been 5 minutes. If you
don't have an empathy watch,
empathic, a lot of times if you're being empathic, then you're not only not looking at the clock, but you're kind of lost to the world. And so, if you've been empathic with someone for 5 minutes and later you're empathic with someone for 10 minutes, like how are we kind of?
I don't think we would log that. We wouldn't log that at all, actually. The idea here is so that we have more of those 5 minutes in our lives, we do this practice where we specifically get together and have an empathy session. We'll put the word session on the end there, right? And that should kind of make it clear that no, I'm actually calling, like Danny, you and I have an empathy session scheduled on Tuesdays at 3:00. We each go for a half an hour. We'll do I'll talk and you can give me empathy for a half hour. We'll switch and there, boom. So there's an hour of empathy practice, giving and receiving.
I see. Thank you.
And we provide those opportunities like crazy. I mean, that's the whole idea behind the directories and the trainings and the cafes. So all that is just to help everybody get on the empathy train. Cool.
Anything else? Questions?
I'm just thinking that we might want to share that sometimes people will take more than a year to complete their certificate because it is a lot to implement all in at once. But over time, you'll get a better understanding of what it is that we're asking of you.
Yeah.
I guess my fear is that people are intimidated by everything, but you do have extra time too.
Right. That's true. Like if you only do half of it this year, you do the other half next year. And it's not another $65. We do ask that you be in the course again, but you know what I mean? Your application is good for 2 years. And so at the end of the year, what we do in May is we send out an email that says, hey, it's time to start bringing, telling us, showing us your work, sending in your work, or letting us know that you're going for next year, right? So everybody in the course has either been bumped to next year, just simply incomplete and gone, or completed, right? 3 categories, I guess you could say. Okay.
How much does it cost for the next year?
For the COC, it doesn't cost anything. You pay once. And if you do it in the first year, you're fine. If it takes you 2 years, you're still fine. But you would have to be in the course that you would pay for again, which is $79 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the only reason we could charge so little, by the way, is that we have generally we've never had less than 2,000 people in the course. So that just makes us, it's so cool. It gives us the ability to offer so much for $79. It's crazy.
And I'll just add that there are many optional things that you can do in the course. Or you can just take the course, which has been successful for many years, just as it is, with the weekly
Right.
emails, the monthly conferences, which you can come to, or you can listen to. You will have access to the recordings. That alone has changed lives for years.
True.
And so, but we've added some additional things that are just really options. And most of them you could join at any time as well. You know, practice groups will take on new people when someone's interested. So they are options.
Yeah.
I know the first year I took the course, and I had taken some in-person courses as well, but the first time that I took it, I have to say, I just would pick an email at some random time when I was feeling that I wasn't happy about something, and I would just grab an email and look at it. Don't tell Tom, but I would read that email, and there would often be something in there that would help me with what was going on for me, help me find a little bit more calm, help me find a little bit more understanding. And so if you commit to the certificate, you're saying that it's a way of committing more to yourself to do the work, because it is easy to just say, oh yeah, I'll think about that and not do it. But I really want to clarify that many of the things are optional. You can just register for the course and still have some changes in your life.
Yeah. And the other thing, just to note, you know, the course starts, it's only one, right? It's not like every time somebody signs up, the course starts for them. We all start the very same day every year. And we keep the same pace throughout the year together as a learning community. And there's a huge advantage to that, because you could be in 5 different practice groups and everybody's going to be in the same spot, right? If you go to this group on week 5, or this week, you know, this group in week 7, they're going to be working on week 7. They're going to be working on week 5, just like you are. So what happens is it keeps us moving together and gives us a tremendous amount of choice as to how and when we do take options on or not, right? So it's kind of unique in that regard, because people keep saying, well, why do you only do it once a year? Why don't you just do it whenever somebody wants to? But there's something to this that makes it feel way different that we're all doing it together. Yeah.
And people come back year after year because
yeah.
what's different, the course is the same, maybe just, you know, a few little tweaks, but what's different is each person. Each time I come back and I read the same lesson, I am a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so I take something in different about it. And
That's
I make
funny.
it
Yeah.
in a different way.
Yeah, because it's funny. I was just talking to Maria, the woman who's doing the Greek translation of the course, and she said she did the COC last year, and then this year she read it and she was like, "Wow, I can't even write the same thing again. I have to write a new one because I'm different." And it is true. I mean, the course stays the same, but it's also the course asks a lot. You know what I mean? So we can. Nobody's gotten bored. Nobody's said, I got it down, I'm done, thanks, Tom. So, it's kind of written that way, in a way, right? That it's like, I kind of say it's like golf, right? There's no perfect game of golf. You can always get better at it. So like that. Aileen, did you have something? Oh, you have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Oh, sorry. I think I did the course every year for the first 6 years, and then I didn't do it for a few years, but it continued to work in me. Like my whole relationship with my siblings has changed enormously. Now we're all getting older, and I'm sitting down now and writing letters to my older siblings about what I have appreciated, about them in my life. I could never have done that before, but because of this, like, to me, it just keeps, once we tap into this, it takes a hold of us, I think, and gives us a whole different way of looking at everything.
Yeah. We call that integration, right?
Okay.
Where it really starts to become part of how you be yourself, right?
And I met Marshall years and years and years ago. I was studying at this American university in Geneva, and our psychology professor brought Marshall in to do that one day with us,
Uh-huh.
which absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah. 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 He was a great man changed my life. Before I met him, he changed my life. And then after I met him, he really changed my life.
Just realizing that it's possible to me that we could have this way of being with people. That was my big thing.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. Wonderful interruption. I love that. All right. Where are we at, Anto? Are we in
I
our
was just I was talking
our
when I was muted. So
journey
we're a little over
through-
an hour. So I just want to check in to see if maybe any
Okay.
last bits of questions, concerns.
But in terms of what you wanted to put out,
I think it's all covered.
you got it all covered. All right. All the check boxes are checked.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah. So just any final questions, and maybe we could wrap it up now, I guess.
Yeah.
We're all pretty good.
I'd like to add one more thing, as I often do. To be realistic, it doesn't make you suddenly this angelic person who's always happy. But one of the things that I so appreciate about it is even when I am struggling, I always know that I can have the support to help me find that more peaceful place, even if it isn't in that moment. And
Right.
sometimes it still takes a little while, but I appreciate what it does for me in my daily life, and how I always hold on to that hope that I will find.
Yeah. Well, and that's true. That's kind of how it all starts, right? Like we see that this is possible, even though we can't necessarily do that in every moment of our lives the way we would love to. But at least you know it's there. And there is that stage of, it's actually literally one of the stages of learning that I've identified. And that is that you actually know what it is. You don't just know that it's there, but you know what it is. You know it's there and you know what it is, right? And then that's what brings us to, I know that it's there, I know what it is, and I know how to do it. Like I'm starting to learn it. I'm learning the basics of it. I look at it as viewing into a parallel universe. I really do. It's just a parallel universe. It's feelings and needs. That's all that's in that universe, by the way. That's everything that's in the universe. Feelings and needs, right? In that living universe of ours. And that's what the whole course is about. It is literally about what it means. The more and more we see those things, the more we see that parallel universe, the more we reference that parallel universe and use that as how we go about being people. That's it in a nutshell. So thanks, Doreen, for pointing that out.
You're welcome. And I have to thank you because it was you that has helped transform me. So thank you.
Anytime, Doreen. Cool. All right. So we're pretty good now. All right. We'll call it a Q&A session. There it is. So thank you. Thank you for being here. And if you're listening to this, thank you for listening to this or watching this. As I like to say, here we go.
All right.
So,
Thank you,
Cool.
everyone. Hope to talk soon. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions. All right. See
All
you
right, cool.
soon. Talk soon.
Thank you very much.
all
Thanks,
right. There
everybody.
we go. Ciao, ciao.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hopefully we'll see you again.